Hey guys, it's Sam. I am back again a little bit later than I expected to be. I apologize. Um, when you're starting something new, like it's challenging. It's challenging. Let me just say that. First of all, I want to address, so I noticed from the last video that kind of on the floor over here behind me, there was a little bit of stuffing from one of my dog's toys and another one of her toys just laying there. And y'all, I did not realize that that was there when I was recording. I promise. I promise. You can see behind me now. I'm not generally that messy of a person. Um, and then another thing that I want to go ahead and address, my hope and goal with this channel is to reach like lots and lots of people um, for Jesus. And I know that there are those of you who are believers already. Um, that a little bit of my decor that I've got going on in the background is not going to sit too well with you. And I'm going to be honest, like I honestly have been like struggling all night long, like um should I have done something different? But um I don't want you to know the fake me. I want you to know the real me. Um, the real me that is 1000% in love with Jesus and a child of God and loves to decorate for the holidays. Uh, I know that Halloween in a lot of ways, makes people feel a lot of kind of ways, and I know that there is. I'm not ignorant. I know there's a whole other side out there. However, um, it's always been like a fond childhood memory for me, and then a fond memory as an adult um, with my kids, you know, dressing up, going to every fall festival we could possibly go to, taking the kids trick or treating, and I get it, for my fellow followers of Christ. Like I said, I know that a lot of you are going to have issue with that, and I apologize up front. However, um, I am who I am, and Jesus would not have called me um, in this season to do this thing if I was not ready or needed to be somebody else. So this is who I am. Um, as you can see, I got my little Mickey and Minnie back there in their, little Halloween costumes and things. Like, for me, again, I know there's other stuff out there, but for me, it's always been the cutesy stuff. My kids dressing up in, you know, non-gory costumes, etc. And they've complained about that a few times throughout the years. They've complained, but we all have our standards and we all have our own personal convictions, and this is my personal conviction. Um, but we're called to love each other and love everybody. So enough of that. I will move on. I actually just went back and rewatched the first part of my testimony, and honestly, like it's so long that it may be 3 or 4 videos. I don't know, because I don't want to make any individual video um more than about 20 minutes. I went over, a little bit with the first one, 20 to 25 minutes, somewhere in there. Um, so, in my last one, I had kind of uh, stopped off at, I prayed for salvation when I was 5, was baptized, had an experience when I was around 11 or 12, somewhere in there, where I thought the rapture had taken place. Said the prayer for salvation again, baptized again, and now I am, have talked about kind of working my way through my teen years. I'm going to be real vulnerable here, guys, because I feel like that it is true vulnerability and authenticity. Like, our stories are unique to us, but they're only unique to a certain extent because, as they say, there's nothing new under the sun. So I know that there are other people out there, like I've already stated before, that will resonate with my story, or maybe they need to hear my story, but they need to hear all of it. They don't need to hear it glossed over. You don't need to hear it, just the highlights, because that thing that I don't really want to share with anybody might be just what you need to hear. So I'm going to be real honest. So, like I said, I was going through my teen years, bad divorce with the parents. And I ended up towards, I think I was around, I don't know, I moved out when I was 16. Quit school, moved out when I was 16. Well, I say moved out. I moved from mom's house initially to my dad's house. And then, yeah, I ended up moving out even further from there and just kind of couch hopping. One of the couches that I landed on, got me in quite a bad spot, and I ended up strung out on crack cocaine for um a year and a half, somewhere in there. And that's just, I mean, in today's world, pretty much nobody has any problems talking about, they smoke weed or they smoke weed or whatever. But mine was a little bit more serious than that. And that alone is a testimony, because, most people that end up in that lifestyle, they don't come back out of it. But even though I was in that place, you know, I had been raised differently than that. Like, I knew better. And thank God it only took me the year and a half or so to be like, this is not what I want for myself. And so I had a very good friend that I called and asked her to come get me. And she came and got me. And let me just say this here at this point in the video. If you are struggling with any kind of addiction like that, I cannot stress to you the importance of changing your environment. If there is any way possible for you to move, like at least a few hours away. Mine was not quite that far. I moved like an hour and a half away, but at the same time, the people that I had been running with, they were the ones doing all the acquisition. And so I personally didn't even really have the contacts to get things on my own. And so that made it, that was definitely in my favor. However, again, completely removing myself from that environment. And I'm talking about, if you can do it, be drastic. Leave that town, leave that job, leave those people. Cannot stress that enough. It is next to impossible to change your life and not change your environment. I'll leave that there. So anyhow, my friend came and got me. thankfully, I went up there, moved in with her, got a job. She got me a job where she was working at, and you know, like started kind of putting my life back together, back into, somewhat of normalcy. I'm like 19, so I'm living with a friend, and working, doing normal 19-year-old things. And I ended up excuse me, eventually moving in with another friend, and going to work with her. And now, I'm being vulnerable. I'm being real vulnerable here, y'all. Um, I was always, like, from the time I was like 5 years old, I had always been overweight. And was an extremely, like, awkward teenager because, again, both of my parents, God love them. I can remember my dad taking me into Walmart and asking the lady that worked in the clothing department what kind of clothes she thought that he should get for me, and it was even a little more detailed than that. But I won't go there because that was, like I said, he had no filters. It was truly humiliating. Um, and then my mom, God love her, but she, if she could have dressed us like Laura Ingalls Wilder from Little House on the Prairie, like that's what it would have been. So, like, I mean, just real awkward, y'all. So awkward and overweight. I mean, just anyhow. So I do not recommend this to anybody, but the only good thing that came from my year and a half on crack cocaine was the fact I lost a whole lot of weight. Thankfully, it was not, like a lot of the pictures that we see of people on meth and things, where their faces um, has been really messed up in those things. And I didn't have any of that. I just lost weight. So now here I am. I'm like probably 60 pounds lighter, the smallest I've ever been in my entire adult life, childhood, teenage, adult life. And I'm living with friends and working, and I mean, we're doing what young single people do. If they don't if they don't have a relationship with Jesus, let me not, lump everybody in there. But even then, even with a relationship with Jesus, like, I mean, when you're young, you don't always make the best decisions. But anyhow, um, so this particular friend, though, her dad was a pastor, and the church that they were attending at the time had a gospel sing the first or second Friday of every month. And it wasn't a total heathen. We've been raised in church, and those sorts of things. And so we decided to go to the gospel sing. We loved music, and there was some part of us that cared about Jesus, not on any level that should have been, but if you've been raised in it, it's impossible not to some extent, even if you don't personally know the Lord yet, to have a care and regard for those things. And so we go to the church. So now let me back up just a little bit. I just realized I skipped some. Before we went to that gospel sing, I was probably around 17, maybe 16 or 17. I had went to a service one Sunday morning, and I knew I really felt like the Lord was dealing with me. Now, again, this is after, the 5-year-old salvation, the terrified 12-year-old salvation. And now, I'm later in my teens. And like I already mentioned, like I did not know Jesus yet. And so, but that morning, I really felt like, the Lord was still with me. And I went forward and prayed again. I prayed the prayer of salvation again. And I don't, now I know, kind of like what the holdup was, but then, like, I knelt down, I prayed the prayer, but I didn't feel any different when I got up. As a matter of fact, like, I really did not have any peace when I stood up from the altar and saying that prayer. But what do? Because you've been taught, say the words, say the words, pray the prayer, and it's supposed to work. It's supposed to work. But so, even though I didn't feel different, even though, as a matter of fact, not just feeling different, I still had a lack of peace. I, called my mom. Guess what, Mom? And I'm pretty sure she was like, "Are you going to get baptized again?" So, yeah, it was a whole thing. Anyhow, back to the gospel sing a couple of years later. The Spirit was so strong in that service, and I knew that the Lord was dealing with me and drawing me. But it was like a perfect storm, because, like I've just told you, I have publicly prayed baptisms like 3 times now. And I am like a shy person. I'm sitting here making this video, but I can tell you, if I was live, I'd be so freaking nervous. But especially back then, I was very shy. And because of the fact that my dad had no embarrassment for anything and humiliated us unintentionally all the time, doing anything that I felt like even remotely would be embarrassing, or having eyes on me, that sort of, like, it was difficult for me. And the church service wasn't like it is today, in a lot of churches where we dim the lights. And, a lot of people have problems with that, but I'm gonna tell you what, I am all for it, because there is something, it just, number one, I feel like it creates intimacy. And number two, for those people that were like me, that the thought of standing up under what felt like floodlights, and every other person, in the church having their eyes on you, to the shift that's been made to where the lights are dim, and like, altar calls are more open. A lot of times they just open the altar, and like there's a bunch of people, and you're not this lone person standing up in front of all these other people. Anyhow, I'm for it. So in this service, though, like, and a lot of the people that are there know about my 3 trips so far and my baptisms, and were even present for the most recent one a couple of years ago. And so, like, even though I know that the Spirit is dealing with me, I'm struggling. And I'll add in as well, because I know there's people out there, maybe you're where I'm at, maybe you've been there. I was also, like I already said, according to 19-year-old me, I was in a really good place in my life, because I've lost all of this weight. I am removed from the conflict between my parents and all of these things. I've overcome drug addiction. I'm living with, some of my best friends in the whole world, and working and just doing my thing. And not gonna lie, I mean, I'm like 19. There was a huge part of me that was not ready. I was not ready. Um, Unfortunately, during this particular service, uh, the pastor, um, now I'm sure that he genuinely uh believed that he was hearing from the Lord. Um, However, during this particular service, he kind of like stopped the altar call and things. Like it had been going on for a little while, but he kind of stopped it and made an announcement. He was like, I'm really afraid to end this service because I feel like there is somebody here, and this is going to be your last opportunity. It's going to be your last opportunity to turn to the Lord and accept salvation. Um, yeah. So, I'll tell you what, not so smart 19-year-old me did. Not so smart 19-year-old me sat there, and with all of these things that I just talked about, the shyness, the embarrassment, um, and one that I didn't mention is just being like, Lord, why can't I get this right? You know what I mean? Like, what in the world? Just confusion in that area. And then, like I said, not being ready. I literally sat there and I'm like, well, dang. Like, I'm like 19. I may have been 20, but if I was 20, it was like brand new 20. Um, and I'm like, well, most people live till they're about 70, and like y'all, I'm counting. And I'm like, I got like 50 years. I got like 50 years till this decision is going to catch up with me. Uh, I'll say this and end it because we're at 22 minutes. I did not get that 50 years. I didn't even get out the back door. But I'm going to end it here. I know that's kind of a cliffhanger, but hopefully that will help encourage you to come back and hear the rest of the story. So again, I'm working on my timing and getting these things done, y'all. But I love everybody, and I hope that you have a great weekend. And I will talk to y'all later. Bye.